All right, let's go back. They just let him run away. Back over to Van Nuys Boulevard. Copy that. Jay, just FYI, 45 minutes of fuel. Oh, Fryer. 6309. 6309 Van Nuys. Somebody on the roof of the building. 6309 Van Nuys. Which is right, probably next to that original address. So look at that original address that we had to pin on. You see somebody on the roof? There he is. Somebody on the roof. They've got somebody on the roof, maybe associated with the business or. 45 minutes on the ground at Van Nuys. He might be protecting the business. He might be a. Is that a photographer with him? Yeah. All right. Eight men with hammers breaking in. I gotta get that address again. Hold on. Ready for this address? Stand by. Six two seven seven 6277 Van Nuys Boulevard. 6277 Van Nuys Boulevard. 6277 Van Nuys Boulevard. I'm sorry. Colleen, are you with me? Hey there, Colleen, I've got you. Yeah, so things are going sideways here pretty quickly. You can see the crowd is now coalescing once again at Sylvan and Van Nuys Boulevard. But some of these instigators that were within this crowd have branched off and have started looting businesses south of Sylvan on Van Nuys Boulevard. There's separate groups that are breaking into several businesses. As we speak right now, they're trying to get officers in place to begin enforcing and doing whatever they can to possibly catch those looters. But the looting has begun along Van Nuys Boulevard, just south of the Van Nuys Civic Center here, where this peaceful protest has been going on for the past couple of hours. The crowd has clearly grown. Things have gotten a little unruly, and they have declared an unlawful assembly. So we're going to stay here and continue to look for that looting. But there are several reports now of looting several businesses right along Van Nuys Boulevard in this area. Just lost ICOM. I've got you back, Jay. 1 block north of Victory. So further up, go north. Go north. Gilmore and wait, 1 block north. Okay, that's Victory there. So keep going up. Let's go. Let's line up with Van Nuys. 1 block north. Keep going. Keep going. Kyle, you keep going north, and we need to slide over Van Nuys. Right in there. 8 to 10 people with hammers. I'm sorry, Jay. I'm sorry, Jay. I'm just listening to like 5 things at once. They're running bottom left, bottom left. I need less wide shots, more tight shots. Right in that alley there, they're running. Could be nothing. If you lose them, we'll look for another group. But they were running down there, and then there's one guy. Is that a radio? Is that like a walkie-talkie? Yeah, stick with these guys here. They're going to go to another business. I think so. I think so. Yeah, stick with these guys right here. So now they're back over the alley a block this way, right by our live truck. Look at this. I thought so too. I thought so too. Coming back down here. Put the backpack in the car. Threw the backpack in the car. Now yeah. Well, I got that. I got a screenshot. Keep going. Back to them. To what? Um. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. No. But we can't. No chatter right now. Sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah. Quiet. Yeah. Stick with these guys for now. Why not? Hey there. I've got you. Is that producer? Larry, how are you? Show the crowd. We'll go with the crowd then. I got you, Larry. Ellen, this was a peaceful protest that doubled in size over the last couple of hours. It was very peaceful right at the corner of Sylvan and Van Nuys Boulevard in front of the Van Nuys Civic Center. Things started to go sideways when some agitators began defacing public property, and now looting has begun along Van Nuys Boulevard. An unlawful assembly has been declared. Police are forming a skirmish line and trying to isolate those looters. Reporting live from Air 7 HD, I'm Chris Christie, ABC 7 Eyewitness News. Sorry, I lost you for a second. Yeah, there were several groups that they're tracking up and down Van Nuys Boulevard. There were reports of a bail bonds shop possibly that is broken into, and some others just north of Gilmore. CHP is on the way out here. Yep, to help out. Location coming up. Hold on. Scanner 1, by the way. I wasn't sure if you had it up. Okay, cool. Yep, no, of course. No worries. He's about to give a location. Uniform. They're trying to look like cops. They're in uniform. Stand by. Here we go. I can't hear if you guys are talking. We're staying. Do you have to? Do we need fuel? Do we need fuel now? Jay's talking to us. Jay, go ahead. David, it's a gang of looters going to different stores along Van Nuys Boulevard. You see them pouring, look at this, pouring out of this Boost mobile phone store after looting a pharmacy down the block. That must have been a couple of dozen looters right there pouring out of there and now running westbound on Gilmore Street. Let's follow them up Gilmore Street and see where they go. They're basically following each other. It's a gang of looters, some of them armed with crowbars, some of them armed with hammers, and they basically, this is just a repeat, like you said, David, of what we've been seeing over the last 48 hours. Just an incredible, it just leaves you speechless. Yeah, but that shattered glass, that just happened about a minute ago, right before you guys came to me. They made their way from a pharmacy just about a half a block away, stole whatever they were going to steal. Some of them came out with spray cans, so who knows what they did in there. And then they rushed up to this Boost Mobile, and you can see they poured out of there just in the last minute. And of course, as LAPD arrived, that's probably what provoked them. The calls are going out, but LAPD is just doing their best to try and keep up. The calls are coming in fast and furious. The pace is picking up. These are people that branched off of an extremely peaceful protest just a couple of blocks away at the Van Nuys Civic Center. They started agitating the crowd. They got police distracted. They moved off northbound on Van Nuys Boulevard, and they're now going business to business looking for those easy targets. Let's line up at the alley, go this way. Did they? I'll follow them though. They might take them. Where, Jay? All right, get off of him. Look for some more runners. Focus on the LAPD camera circling for now. The LAPD helicopter circling for now. Just keep a nice clean shot. We'll wait for the next. So LAPD has been mobilized. They are also requesting some assistance from the CHP as well. You're looking live at Gilmore Street and Van Nuys Boulevard, where that Boost mobile phone shop has been looted, and now that crowd of looters is just moving on to the next target. Of course, the calls will come in. LAPD will move in that direction. By then, Hopefully they'll be able to catch some of these guys, but they'll just keep moving. They're basically on a crime spree, a running crime spree in Van Nuys right now, while the rest of the force is distracted by the group of protesters, hundreds of peaceful protesters gathered over at the Van Nuys Civic Center at Sylvan and Van Nuys Boulevard. So LAPD has quite a job on their hands up here in Van Nuys right now. Things have obviously gone sideways. It just took a few agitators and criminal looters to really take things in a very ugly turn here in the last few minutes. Victory in Van Nuys. Go back to Victory, which was to the left. Left, left, left. What do you see? West. I see some looting off the top left. Top left, top left, top left, 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 left. Right there, glass. Right there. Bingo. Copy. Yep, we're just up the block now. Victory just to the west of Van Nuys Boulevard, where it looks like a medical marijuana shop has just been looted. Looks like somebody who either works in the business or possibly the business owner himself is armed with a fire extinguisher and chased those people out. You can see the shattered glass there in the street. So yet another business that has been looted here not far from the Van Nuys Civic Center, where once again there is a large gang of looters on a crime spree through the streets of Van Nuys, guys. And look how quick. David, can you hear me? Yeah, I just want to show you, if we look south on Van Nuys Boulevard, Kyle, if you widen out and pan over to the left, there is a steady stream of additional LAPD backup units and California Highway Patrol, I believe, that are in this line. Keep going all the way. You're going to see a line of explorers moving into the shot here, black and white, as far as the eye can see down Van Nuys Boulevard. They're coming in by the dozens to help these officers get a handle on this situation. It is jarring when you look at the two different things that are playing out here. There is a large, peaceful protest, which has been declared an unlawful assembly, and they want to try and disperse that crowd, but it's a peaceful crowd, but nonetheless they need the manpower to maintain order down there. On the other hand, they have a separate group of officers who are chasing a gang of looters through the streets in the surrounding area of the Van Nuys Civic Center, who are going business to business, looking for targets and looting these businesses in mass. So it's an incredible thing, but there's two stories playing out here. Looters who are clearly not affiliated with the Black Lives Matter protesters who are peacefully demonstrating at Van Nuys and Sylvan. Left, left. Tight shot of the explorers. Those are CHP. Vector, Vector. Southbound Vector. See if you can punch in Vector and look at where the LAPD is circling. Let's follow him. That chopper over there, he's circling some looters. Victory. There they are, coming down the block onto Sylvan. This is police chasing looters and forming a skirmish line. So we're looking at about 100 CHP troopers who have moved into position here and forming additional skirmish lines around that original group of protesters to maintain order. In the meantime, LAPD is in the process of literally chasing a gang of looters on foot in the nearby streets. So that's what we're looking at here. You see the skirmish lines being formed, a number of CHP personnel and LAPD moving into the area in large numbers to try and get a handle on the situation. Now again, that protest, while it's peaceful, has been declared an unlawful assembly, but they are getting ready for whatever faces them in the coming minutes and hours, because what started out as a lawful protest this morning has gone sideways.
And that is a shame, because if they were really doing the protest the way they're supposed to do it, they're following the rules, and then the looters kind of ruin it for them, and then it becomes an awful assembly. So it's a shame to see that.
Well, so the protesters deserve a right to be heard.
Exactly.
The looters change the dynamic of the situation, and law enforcement is stuck in the middle, having to allow people to enact their rights as Americans, but at the same time, looters are breaking the law.
Yeah, it's a shame. And so now apparently they're on foot trying to get these guys. And
that's them. That's them.
Let's go to Chris Christie.
Yeah.
Chris, is that them?
Yeah, that's a group that we saw earlier. That's certainly some of them. There's a whole bunch of them, and that's some of them. They kind of find a way to zigzag their way through these alleys here. They hide behind buildings. They know where their cars are. They go back to their car. They take a drink of water. They drop off their backpacks, and then they head to the next location. And they have been doing this now for the better part of the last hour since that original protest has been declared unlawful. LAPD now obviously very busy with the protest, so they have basically feel like they have free reign to loot these businesses with impunity.
Yeah, the officers are otherwise preoccupied and doing their thing, and they take advantage of the situation where they can maybe get a little bit of more.
Okay, let's check with Philip.
Yeah, Philip.
That's Philip's camera right there on the left-hand side. Philip, what's going on?
Well, we've gotten some confrontation here. I will tell you that a lot of people down here may not even know it's an unlawful assembly. I'm hearing it from you guys. It wasn't communicated very well down here. Then we saw a moment ago, and this is the tension that you're talking about. Somebody had a skateboard, and we just watched him banging the skateboard on the ground. And hey, it's startling. You don't know what that is, what that noise is. This is the direction. We noticed this police presence here. This is the alley. We were coming down over here. And earlier, we were able to just go up and down that alley with just random people. And as you mentioned, David, before, that was an area that people were using to quickly go up and down the street. And so police came back here and kind of shut that path off. We see a little bit of a conversation here now. And I'm just trying to hear what he's saying. He's trying to keep people out of the street, basically.
Okay.
So it was just a little tense there for a moment, but it's over.
Okay, we're going to watch your camera.
At least that part of
We're going to split the screen here. We have another image to bring you, this time from our other helicopter. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's
Chris Christie's. I think he is shooting what Philip is also witnessing as well, a discussion between law enforcement and protesters, which is a good sign that there's some communication. This is what we were talking about next. This is our other helicopter that is now in Hollywood, showing a separate group of protesters marching down this street in Hollywood. Perhaps we could pop up Sky Map 7 so we can see.
Hollywood Boulevard and Gower right now.
Very good. Yeah. Okay. Hollywood Boulevard and Gower, protesters on the march. Where are they headed? That's the big question. And it is a pretty decent-sized group that is on the move. So yet another front that we are watching here as we hit at 4:23 this afternoon. So Southern California is really heating up when it comes to the variety of protests and the fronts that we're going to have to cover here, as these different communities are very concerned about what's going to happen.
The big concern right now is that these protesters might get on the 101 freeway. So that is that right now the efforts are going to be to try to keep them off the freeways, because we've seen numerous times, they block the freeways, they try to get on there, and that becomes a big problem for the traffic and for CHP, try to get it under control. So hopefully they can keep them off the freeways, and this peaceful demonstration looks very organized. Doesn't look like any problems yet.
Okay.
Hopefully it'll stay that way.
We're getting word now. Ron, do you want to go to Philip on this? Or do you want me just to say it? Okay, so we're getting word now from Philip on the ground that they're going to let them protest in Van Nuys. They've had a discussion. They're going to allow the protesters to be heard, and that will continue in Van Nuys. But let's keep our fingers crossed that the looting can stop, and there's enough law enforcement there to keep the looting down. Okay.
Well,
so
that is good news.
That's that picture that you see right there. And that was that discussion that you saw both on the ground and in the air as they try to coordinate the protesters and give them the message that keep it cool and let's just peacefully protest.
Yeah, we saw officers talking to some of the protesters there, and hopefully they've come to an agreement. And if we could take you back to the Hollywood, there you go, that sign on the right-hand side, the screen on your right, that is Hollywood Boulevard.
Westbound.
And it looks like it seems to grow very quickly. People just join in and start walking. And
the stars in the Hollywood Walk of Fame can now be seen on the sidewalk. So it's turning into a rather iconic image for protest here in Southern California. And so far, they've taken over Hollywood Boulevard. So that is a major thoroughfare in the afternoon. But that is secondary to the fact that let's hope this stays peaceful and they just simply want to be heard. And it bears repeating, I'm sure the vast majority of these people are peaceful protesters.
Exactly, and I'd like to hear that. And if you wanted to know, I think there's other, in Hollywood, West Hollywood, that curfew is 4 p.m. to sunrise. So all these curfews are starting early, but like we've seen in the last couple of days, people don't really adhere to the curfew, but nonetheless they could be arrested. So
okay, so there's Hollywood on the right-hand side, Hollywood Boulevard westbound. They just passed Gower. They're heading towards North El Centro Avenue, and on the left-hand side, that is Van Nuys, where there's a discussion with law enforcement and protesters, which we love to see. And the police chief yesterday, actually in his press conference, said there are moments where there is good communication between protesters and law enforcement, which he he so encourages. What messes things up, of course, is the looters that we just saw a few minutes ago. And we saw them overtake a couple of different shops in Van Nuys, a cell phone shop, a smoke shop, completely, absolutely shattering it, overrunning it, taking merchandise, and then running as fast as they can through the back alleys of Van Nuys. And Chris did see law enforcement that took off after them. We don't know if anybody was apprehended or any arrests have been made, but we think that's a good sign that at least they're willing to make some effort to stop the looting.
It was quite a scene to see, 15, 20 people coming out of that cell phone store with, bags full of stuff, and in a matter of seconds, breaking that window, going in there, grabbing their things and leaving and running down the alleyway.
Okay, so you're seeing a large police presence. It's mainly CHP that is protecting the community of Van Nuys right now. They're just simply watching the protesters. As you can see, most of the protesters are being peaceful. They're trying to organize. They're waiting for this discussion to wrap up so they can move on with their protest. So everybody's being patient here, while our concern is what's happening in the back alleys. I know Philip Palmer has been kind of meandering through those back alleys trying to look for what might be happening, and we've spotted looters a few times in those back alleys. Where is he, Ron?
Ron, where is he?
Okay. We want to switch. Okay, we want to switch you to yet another scene and bring you into the Inland Empire and the community of Riverside. Rob McMillan now is watching a gathering protest right now. Rob?
Yeah, good afternoon from downtown Riverside, where about an hour ago we had a very large, and it's been growing over the past hour, protest grow, easily 3,000 or 4,000 people right now. They started here in the park in front of the Mission Inn, and Martin, if you move clockwise, you can see how the crowd has moved out into the streets. About 10 minutes ago, this crowd poured out onto Mission Inn Avenue and just started heading west. It has been very peaceful so far, a lot of chanting, a lot of people with signs, and a lot of support from people driving by, honking their horns. You can see, like the guys in the blue car right there, they're shaking their fists. Signs that say, "All lives matter." A very loud protest, and peaceful, I would say, but it's tough to say at this point because they have spilled into the street. Now, the Mission Inn Hotel is to our right. And from what we've been told, it is on lockdown. People are not allowed inside unless they're guests of the hotel. I tried to go in there myself and they wouldn't let me in. But again, a very peaceful crowd at this point, but they have moved into the streets of Riverside. Now, I should say that we have not seen any police here, at least not visibly. But we know that there are police in the area staging. We've been seeing the helicopter move and circle overhead as they attempt to discern what is going on with the crowd. But I would say half the crowd has stayed over at the park in front of the public library, and the rest of the crowd has poured out into the streets of Riverside. Again, I would say close to 3,000 or 4,000 people here, most of them peaceful at this point. Again, the Riverside Police Department does have a plan in place, but they don't know exactly how that's going to go. They say a lot of what they're going to do is based on what they're going to see out of the crowd here in downtown Riverside. Again, a very large crowd, but so far, although they are breaking the law by spilling out into the streets, a very peaceful crowd in Riverside. Rob McMillan, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Rob, it looks like a sizable crowd there, so we're going to check back with you in a little bit. But in the meantime, we're going to go to the left-hand side of your screen in Hollywood Boulevard there. They're right now at El Centro. They're headed toward Argyle and Hollywood Boulevard. Then they'll get to Vine. But we see that big sign, and the red sign says, "Say their names."
Say their names.
Yeah, so that's a new sign that we haven't seen before.
I'm only guessing here. I know there's some pictures that they have on that banner over to your right-hand side of who they're talking about. I'm assuming that they mean say the names of victims of police violence.
Yeah, it looks like that. It looks that way. And so far, this has remained peaceful, although they are walking through the middle of the street. Not a lot of traffic for Hollywood Boulevard, especially like on a Monday afternoon, but We'll have to see where they headed, but I think they're trying to avoid getting on the freeway.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
They are now at Hollywood and Vine, which is a very popular intersection. They just passed the W Hotel, so if you're familiar with Hollywood, that's a notable landmark. They passed that. That is another shot from Van Nuys right now. Should we switch over there as we continue to watch these marchers in Hollywood? It looks like they're starting to organize in Van Nuys after the discussion with law enforcement. So Chris Christie is there watching that. Chris, what's going on?
Again, this is the crowd, David, that has been here since around noon this afternoon, right near the Van Nuys Civic Center. And as you could tell, it really is a peaceful crowd of protesters. They are very orderly. In fact, they haven't really spent much of their time in the actual street. They keep congregating on the sidewalk and holding up their signs. And we've seen organizers having conversations with the LAPD. LAPD standing by just in case. There are several skirmish lines that have been formed to keep them in a certain area. There are a whole bunch of cruisers not far away to prepare to mobilize in the event that they start moving. But right now, they have allowed this crowd to protest. The problem is, while 99% of them are very peaceful, there were instigators that infiltrated the crowd during this protest and have splintered off and have gone around this neighborhood now, terrorizing businesses and looting local businesses up and down Van Nuys Boulevard. We've seen a cannabis store, we've seen a pharmacy, we've seen that Boost mobile store, and there are several others that have already been hit. We've seen at least 24 or so, maybe more, at least 24, probably much more actually, that have been running through the streets trying to get their hands on whatever they can. Guys?
All right, well, we're going to check with Philip. He is there on the ground. Philip?
Well, Ellen, it's kind of odd because Van Nuys is now back open, at least in this part. But here's Boost right here. Just saw a moment ago. Let me see if I can get it. So it's right there. All that glass. There's
Victory in Hazeltine.
All
Copy
right.
that?
So sorry, we're having a bad signal on you, Philip, but we did see that shot of Boost, and that was the location that we were showing from the air just a few minutes ago with a shattered glass, and we saw a dozen or so people running out of that location.
I believe I heard it says Van Nuys and Hazeltine. Is that what I heard? Mike, our director?
Is that on Tech 3?
Oh, I knew.
Okay,
All right.
So we'll continue to watch the situation. Philip's got a tough signal there, but he's trying to gather more information and show us the damage from the ground. Chris Christie overhead watching the marchers now getting more organized and getting back on the move.
Right now we can go to West Hollywood. We have Veronica Miracle there. What is the latest there, Veronica?
David and Ellen, we've seen this crowd form rather quickly over the last half an hour. We just got here, but I want to show you the iconic Laugh Factory here with the George Floyd Rest in Peace sign right on the sign there. And then right below it, the windows are boarded up, as are businesses all along this street here at Sunset and Laurel. Every single business that I can see, from the Trader Joe's to the CVS, is all boarded up. You know, I want to talk to this woman here. She's been organizing. Ma'am, I'm with ABC7. I'm live on TV. Hi. Can you talk to me about, I've seen you organizing. I see everybody taking a knee. What's going on right now?
I mean, we came out here at 1 p.m. There's 5 of us. And then by 3 p.m., all these people showed up. Because these are the people, the news, the media, no offense to you, miss, they don't want to show this. I've watched the news all week from my home as I was self-quarantining. And I only see the bad stuff. But these are the people that actually care. These people have been peaceful since 1 p.m. It is now almost curfew time, which was pushed up 10 minutes before we found out. I don't think that's quite fair. We've done nothing. I made sure everyone stayed to the sidewalk, out of the way of traffic. I made sure everyone's peaceful. I called out people who came here with anger, because that's not what this is about. It doesn't service George, doesn't service Brianna, doesn't service my brothers who are 15, who have to grow up in this world. So my whole purpose here is to keep it peaceful. I want to make sure everyone goes home alive and healthy. That's my only goal.
I've heard you tell people, hey, the curfew's coming up. If you want to leave, leave now. What's your intention behind that?
Because it's been a week now since George died, and we know what happens after curfew. After curfew, the cops, they get aggressive. They get aggressive, and they blame it on us and say we're rowdy and chaotic. So I'm giving everyone the chance to head out now. You know what that means if you stay after curfew. You know it means you're subject to arrest. You're big boys and girls. You came down for a protest. I gave you the opportunity. If you don't go, that's on you. It's not on me.
Absolutely. Are you going to be staying up tonight? What's your hope for tonight?
I'm going to stay until all the people that I'm responsible for are gone. can't take responsibility of holding a protest and then dip out. And if that means I get arrested, that's what it means. But I am responsible for every last soul that is here today because they came because of something I did.
Okay, and then lastly, to the camera, to those people who come here to loot and cause destruction and take away from the message of George Floyd, what is your message to them?
First of all, anyone who's non-black, you are a guest at this protest. And I say this on my Instagram all the time. If you are Asian, white, or white passing Latino, you're a guest at our protest. So for you to act in violence or looting, no one asked for that. We didn't ask for that. You're not here for the message. So you can stay at home because you're not servicing us. You don't know what it's like to be black and walk outside every day and have to live in this skin. So I don't need you to come here and live out your Joker fantasies or your Batman fantasies. I don't need any of that. I need you to be with us or stay home.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
We'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Veronica, thank you very much. Right now, we're going to get overhead Air 7 HD pursuit happening right now. What can you tell us, Chris?
Southbound Tyrone.
All right, they
they
just dropped
just
off
threw
some
some stuff.
merchandise. We just saw that. Chris is on what we believe are looters. They're, at least that's the initial report. Wrong way down the street. Chris Christie, we got you now. Are these looters and police are actually after them?
These are looters. LAPD trying their best to catch up. He's doing circles around this block, driving very recklessly now. These are the looters that looted that pharmacy, they believe. They believe these are the looters that looted that pharmacy just north of the protest. And now they are in a black Charger. LAPD had one unit who was able to catch up with them, tried to pull them over, and they are now in pursuit, what is becoming a dangerous pursuit if you just take a look at this driving, going very high rates of speed on very narrow surface streets here in the valley as he zigzags his way through, coming off of Sylmar, getting onto Kittredge now, at times getting onto the wrong side of the road, now weaving through traffic and driving very, very recklessly. Pedestrians in the road. Right before you came to me, he came so close to a bicyclist. They're jumping out of the car. We've got some of the passengers foot bailing. The driver is still driving. We'll stick with the driver. We did see something fly out of the car, possibly a bag of something.
A red bag. We saw them throw that out.
And we'll see if they're able to track him down because now he's in a little bit of traffic. I could tell you that the LAPD airship is overhead calling the shots too, so hopefully he won't get too far and they'll be able to converge on him. But it does look like LAPD has lost a little bit of ground on him, but the driving is very dangerous. These are now wanted looters in pursuit.
And Chris, the pharmacy, was that the medical marijuana pharmacy or a different pharmacy?
Different pharmacy.
Oh, okay.
It was south of the Boost Mobile. First they hit, actually, I think it was one of the very first businesses very close to the protest that they hit up a pharmacy just north of Sylvan on Van Nuys Boulevard.
Okay.
And then they kept going, and this is believed to be that group. Now on an alleyway, I think. No, that's Cedros Avenue, coming up on Archwood Street, going northbound. No sight of LAPD in this shot here, but they're still on him. So we'll try and keep up with them. We'll see if they can keep up with him as well, but they do have the helicopter overhead at least. So that's at least a little bit of good news. But the speeds are worrisome here. It's now turned into a following, basically tracking him at this point because the speeds were getting just too dangerous on these streets. There's just too many people out right now. It's worth mentioning we are under a mandatory curfew. And here in the Valley, I have a feeling that we're going to see that being enforced here in the next couple of hours in a more strict fashion if this continues. But this is a group of looters, once again, now being tracked by the LAPD. We saw a couple of people at least jump out of the passenger side, and now it looks like it's just the driver. Well, I don't know that. There might be more people in the back seat, but at least the driver obviously still driving very recklessly up Vesper Avenue now.
All right, Chris, as Chris continues to watch this situation, a very dangerous pursuit. We just saw a dramatic shot from Veronica's camera. This is in West Hollywood. There's Veronica in the shot, and that was a police officer who was kneeling actually with the protesters.
They still circling.
Kind of a emotional moment of solidarity between police and protesters. So we wanted to bring that to you, and Veronica has been able to capture that, and we'll see some images of that a little bit later on. So things are progressing on a positive way when it comes to that protest in West Hollywood. On the negative side, the pursuit continues where Chris Christie is, where we believe there are looters that are finally being pursued, and they hit a pharmacy.
Looks like someone else made a run for it. Or no, take that back.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, we just have the driver at least. We don't know how many more people are left in that Dodge Charger. That's the black car right there. You just saw that LAPD airship fly through the shot. We widened out because we wanted to see how far back LAPD patrol units were, and it looks like they've fallen back quite a distance. It'll be interesting to see. He's going through Sherman Way now. It'll be interesting to see if they decide to pick this back up. I think that might, I think his driving might dictate some of that. They just don't have enough resources to chase every looter across the entire city. We saw that last night in Long Beach. They tried, and they caught some of those looters. But there was one point last night in Long Beach, David and Ellen, I looked out the window from Air 7 HD, and there were about 3 or 4 separate pursuits happening right in front of our eyes. It was an incredible sight, and now we see that happening up here in the San Fernando Valley, at least with this one pursuit now. Going northbound on Van Nuys Boulevard.
Well, the hope is that perhaps some of the people who bailed, they might have been able to pick them up. And with that, with a license plate, they might be able to do some decent police work later on and get everybody involved. It's not totally necessary that they track this car down right now, especially if it becomes dangerous.
Well, the way he was driving through those surface streets and your pedestrians, and even now, it was probably a pretty dangerous situation.
Yeah, I mean, I say that with the consideration that there are so many things going on across the city right now when it comes to protests, other looters out there, that there has to be priorities. And that's what we saw yesterday, where there's just police officers are spread thin. There's only so much that they can do.
Yep, exactly.
Well, there he's going, a high rate of speed, Chris.
Picking up speed again. We'll go ahead and throw up our real-time speed tracker. About 40 to 50 miles per hour, slowing down for this next light, it looks like. I see he's got a little bit of traffic in front of him, so he's slowing down for that, but we've seen some really aggressive driving. At this point, they have given the order to fall back and just track him. Again, making a northbound turn onto Tyrone Avenue. He's covering a lot of the same streets, but he's moving north gradually, and now he's again northbound on Tyrone, making what appear to be random turns. Who knows if he's even from here? We know that some of these looters are coming in from other areas. He's backing up into this intersection in front of this truck driver and turning around to go back southbound. One has to wonder whether he's going to meet up with his friends. But at one point earlier, I saw one of these looters with what appeared to be a walkie-talkie in his hands. Wouldn't surprise me if it might have been a police scanner, and maybe they are on to, you know, these appear to be strategic looters, and they appear to be pretty well prepared and appear to be strategizing throughout the day. So there's a little bit of speculation in terms of whether he's actually listening to law enforcement or how much he knows here, but certainly it looks like he's getting a little more comfortable, maybe making his way back into the area where it started. But right now he's still a bit north. We're about 20 blocks north of that protest. Now going back in that direction, though, on Hazeltine Avenue, which is where the LAPD originally picked up these looters. It was on Hazeltine down by Victory where they managed to track him down after he looted that pharmacy.
Yeah, maybe he's picking up his buddies or something.
Well, we were watching images all over the place. Philip has a camera down, and we just saw a reenactment of George Floyd's arrest right there on that camera. They just stood up, but people, protesters in the streets, trying to be heard, and their signs are out there, but also a rather dynamic showing of the reenactment of that arrest.
Yeah, I think we're looking on the left-hand side at pictures from Philip Palmer. Is that what we're seeing? Or okay, yeah. It's hard to keep track. There's so many different places that we are keeping track of right now. But also that pursuit that's happening on the right-hand side now with tracking mode. They believe these are the looters that robbed a drugstore in Van Nuys.
So the pursuit on the right-hand side in Van Nuys, that camera on the ground is Van Nuys. Now we move you to Hollywood. That large group of protesters, they're walking down Hollywood Boulevard. Keep in mind, Veronica Miracle is with a group that's in West Hollywood, but they're on Sunset Boulevard. We don't know if these two are going to coordinate and merge, but similar vicinity, but just two different major thoroughfares. But this is Hollywood heading westbound, heading towards West Hollywood.
And this guy is at a stop. Is he at a stop sign? Or
It does appear he's come to a stop. We'll widen out a little bit. Looks like he's in some traffic actually at a stop sign or a stop light. But it is not lost upon him that he's got a couple of helicopters above him. In fact, I think he just gave us a glance. I caught a quick glimpse of his face, and it looks like he's wise to the fact that he's being followed from above, even though the LAPD has fallen back on the ground.
Now, hopefully they were able to get his license plate.
Okay, Valerio Street is where they are. Chris, is this very close to where the protest is happening?
Eastbound on Valerio, no, he's moved quite a distance away now. He's in a completely different part of the San Fernando Valley now. In fact, this would be basically, I would call this Burbank. We're basically, well, maybe closer to Panorama, kind of near Panoramic City on the edge of Burbank. And you can see he's now going southbound through an alleyway, coming out on Wyandotte, making a left turn here. And I just wonder where he's from. Where did he come from? Is he a local Valley resident that decided to loot? Is he coming from another part of LA, or did he fly in from somewhere else? We just don't know. We've heard so many different reports, different profiles of these looters that have been taking part in these riots in the past couple of days, and it's just unclear what this person's situation is. We saw a bag fly out at one point. We saw two passengers, at least two passengers, jump out at one point early on in the pursuit near the original protest. And now, look at, he's still desperate to jump those double yellow lines. Look at that. I mean, he really is still agitated, and even though he's not being followed from behind, his driving is scaring me. Look at that, into oncoming lanes of traffic, making the turn there into a gas station, might be running low, or maybe just cutting through.
All right, we're going to continue to watch this situation. We'll check back with you, Chris. We want to go to Philip Palmer, who's on the ground in Van Nuys. He's with the protesters. And Philip, it's been a rather dynamic statement from the crowd lately.
Yeah, there was a lot of chanting. Right now, there are a few protesters that have just quietly sat down in the street. I say quietly. They're saying no justice, no peace. They've said, say his name, George Floyd. You see the police over here. But I do know, I want to tell you that it wasn't that long ago that we watched, and just on this side of the street, they sat down with police because there was a lot of confusion as to whether they were unlawful, when the curfew was going to happen. And they said, you can come back to this intersection. And I will say that many of the protesters here have done everything they can to keep people out of the streets. They've wanted to keep it very peaceful, very, very polite. It is a protest at this location. When we've gone back into the alleys and everything, totally different scenario. You see a lot of people going and coming that could or could not be supposed to be there. It's also confusing because that's where traffic is going. I just want to say that where we are has been very peaceful. A lot of people just wanting their voices heard, and it's, I think, what police want, but there is some tension as well. Well, so we'll go back to you guys.
All right, we want to take it now to that large group of protesters marching down Hollywood Boulevard. They're making progress. Keep in mind, they're heading westbound, but there on Hollywood Boulevard, there's another group of large group of protesters in West Hollywood, but they're on Sunset Boulevard, and we're so far, from what we've seen, Ellen, this has been a very peaceful group, and it looks like they're starting to gather at one specific intersection. We'll try to figure out what that intersection is. Is Highland? Oh, is this?
And I believe there is some, it looks like police officers, if we can zoom out a bit. Is there a skirmish line there? Yes.
Yeah, there is.
So, yeah, they're gathered there,
wow.
And it was quite a big crowd.
Mm-hmm. Sunset and Vine, is that what you said, Sunset and Vine? Or is... Okay, this is Hollywood and North Hollywood Avenue. Okay, we'll try to get some clarification on what's happening here with this protest. And then that's in Hollywood on the left-hand side. That's okay. Clarification now. On the right-hand side is Hollywood Boulevard and Highland Avenue. And on the left-hand side is Sunset and Vine. That's where Veronica Miracle is reporting from. So both these two groups are fairly close to each other, Ellen, but they are separate.
And you wonder, will they be planning to converge? Who knows what, if they're in contact with each other with social media. Everyone has their phones, and we'll have to see how this protest goes, and hopefully remains peaceful.
It looks like the police line is set up on Highland Avenue, so they're going to prevent them from going down Highland, but they seem to be allowing them to go down Hollywood Boulevard.
And I imagine a lot of the stores at Hollywood and Highland have been closed down and boarded.
Look at that building on the corner there.
Yeah,
it looks like that's boarded up.
In preparation for that. Yep, there you go.
Right there too.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, and then there's the stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So you're probably familiar with this area, and this is a major intersection, Hollywood and Highland. It's one of those intersections that you just dread going through because it's so busy all the time. And it's also, on a normal day, non-coronavirus day, it's filled with tourists.
Many of them on their knees, holding up their signs.
This is on the right-hand side of your screen. That's what we're talking about in Hollywood and Highland right now. And that police line set up, so far it's been very peaceful. This group has been very peaceful. They've held their signs, their banners. Now that there's a police presence, though, they've stopped. So let's see what's happening over there in the corner. And it looks like protesters are trying to calm something down or prevent something from happening. A lot of cameras in that corner as well, so it's attracting a lot of attention, but we can't see it from here. But something's happening in that corner.
Yeah, they certainly are looking at something. I wish we could figure out.
And it's a Foot Locker that's boarded up. So let's hope there's no looting going on in there. And if there is, it looks like there might be protesters there that are willing to kind of step in the way. So here we're going to get a different Evan.
Are de-escalating anybody who might get a little agitated or perhaps tempted to do the taunt the officers. It's just, you see some of their own people trying to keep it under control as well. But this is an interesting development. See if they're trying to, in fact, get into that. It looks like a Foot Locker.
I don't think they're trying to, I don't think it's looters. I think they're trying to make a statement of some sort. They seem to be holding on to each other. And they're right there by police. So not quite sure what it is, but it's not looters. And that store, the Foot Locker, has not been entered. So it seems to be remaining peaceful, and these protesters are simply protesters. Left-hand side now, I think that's Philip's camera in Van Nuys. Oh, I'm sorry. On the left-hand side, Ron? But that's Carl's.
Oh, Carl Schmidt.
Oh, Carl Schmidt's in Hollywood. Okay. Oh, okay. Can we talk to him or no? I know he's having some signal issues. Okay. All right. And then now I think we've switched over to is that? I don't want to speak too soon. What do we see now on the left-hand side? Rob Hayes' camera. Okay.
It's hard because a lot of these scenes and intersections, it's hard to see unless you're seeing signage, you know, where exactly they are.
Is this Studio City where Rob is right now, Ron? On Hollywood as well. Hollywood. Okay, there. Is that, Rob can hear us, right? Rob, can you hear us?
Oh, I hear you now, yes.
What are we seeing there?
Well, we're at the corner of Sunset and Vine. This protest has been going on since 4 o'clock, so coming up on an hour here. You can see a good-sized crowd. It has been very peaceful. They're here with their signs. People are driving by. The streets are open here, and they're honking with their honks of support. And one of the more encouraging things is if you take a look here, I don't see one LAPD officer anywhere near these folks. And right across the street behind where we are, Jamie, if you turn around, you'll see there's just a couple of National Guardsmen standing in front of the buildings. But for the most part, this has been a super peaceful rally. Just a lot of honking, a lot of signs, and a lot of people just turning up here to show their support for the Black Lives Matter movement.
Okay, Rob, I'm going to just point out to our audience on the right-hand side, those protesters are going through kind of a truly iconic part of Hollywood. They just passed the Dolby Theater. That's where the Academy Awards take place today, and now they're passing Nan's Chinese Theater right there on your left-hand side. I mean, I'm sorry, on the right-hand side, but on
theater.
TCL, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they changed it
Old
a while
school,
back, right? Yeah.
Old school. And then you see the stars in the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So this is iconic Hollywood, and they're passing by a military vehicle. That's the National Guard that is in place, and you can see a National Guardsman right there on the sidewalk by the stars. So their job, obviously, is to continue to protect property, and they're protecting that property of, as we've seen yesterday, like City Hall, iconic structures that are in Los Angeles to make sure they remain safe, and so far they've done a good job.
And we've seen that sign in Hollywood as those marchers that definitely has grown this crowd, and the red sign that they're holding in the front of the line say their names, and no doubt referring to different people, of course, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Christian Cooper, so many different cases in the last few months, you know, that I'm sure those pictures
say
depict
their names.
Many of them.
You just did, Ellen. Say their names.
And there's so many more.
Yeah. So they are on the go, and we're happy to report that so far it has been a peaceful protest. They're accomplishing their goal. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of problems with this group going through Hollywood, outside of the inconvenience of traffic, of course. But no violence whatsoever. They stop and make their point. They're holding their signs, and they're on the go. Where they're headed, we're not sure.
We're going to check in with Philip Palmer, though, right now, because he is still in Van Nuys. And Philip, any developments there?
Yeah, just a couple, Ellen and David. Here's the thing. Right over there is where the protest was that you guys watched a few moments ago, and we're just hearing from the police. I've double-checked with a couple of different officers. They're telling everybody to start going home now. So they gave them until 5 to protest. We did overhear that conversation with authorities when they were talking with one of the protesters, and he said, okay, we got 45 minutes, let's make the most of it. And they did. They went over there, they had the protest, which you saw. There was chanting. There was actually a moment of silence as well. It's been very peaceful. At this location where the organizers are gathering people, there were problems down the street with looting, was not associated with this. So now everybody's being told to start disperse. They're trying to get them out of the streets and get them to going on their way. So we'll stay here and we'll let you know what happens over the next little bit.
Yeah, this is when it gets a little bit tricky, when people are told to go home and curfews are in place.
Right.
But we'll watch that closely. And Philip, you're there on the ground, and Chris Christie has been over the air as well, watching the situation.
Also, Chris has been en route and in that pursuit that they believe that were possible looters that were making a run for it after hitting a drugstore. They also hit a mobile store there and a marijuana dispensary in Van Nuys.
There's Chris Christie right now.
A new stand.
Chris, you pulled up off the pursuit, or are you still on it?
Sorry about that, David. So LAPD lost it, and we happened to lose it as well. Basically, what's going on here is the type of driving that we were seeing just became too dangerous. And at the end of the day, what are they able to do with him in this case? Is it worth the risk to public safety when he's going to be processed with no bail, not face any jail time, and just be released with a citation? It just doesn't make sense, and so they decided to give it up altogether. Now they're tracking other suspicious individuals who are mixed in with protesters who are moving up and down Van Nuys Boulevard. Some of them are peaceful, but others of them are armed with weapons. We're talking about hammers, we're talking about crowbars, and right now they're looking for somebody armed with a knife in the middle of the crowd. We were on the other corner that you're looking at right here, the northeast corner, and somebody randomly took a bottle of water and poured it on a bunch of protesters. These are agitators who are trying to get these crowds riled up and looking to just basically distract the police. That's the name of the game. You distract the police, and then they go on their crime spree. It's a trend we've been seeing, and the pattern is not really changing.
This is Mark Brown, by the way, along with Colleen Sullivan, getting ready for Eyewitness News at 5. When you talk about that pattern, trying to distract the police, trying to rile up the protesters, there's a saying, that's an old saying, don't fall for the okie doke. And if they don't, then it'll be all right. But you'll have to see whether that takes place as we're watching these large groups and looters that are looting that is taking place. This is Eyewitness News at 5, and our continuing coverage of the protests against police violence and the occasional lawlessness that has erupted, that has caused a lot of damage in a lot of communities in Southern California. Chris, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, we're just keeping an eye on this group right here. Again, LAPD has been pretty patient most of the day. We saw LAPD, one of the commanders actually talking to an organizer, allowing them to protest a while ago, but the crowd has really dispersed into different intersections and different corners. This happens to be Victory and Van Nuys Boulevard. All of this started earlier today around noon over at the Van Nuys Civic Center, where a crowd of 100 protesters grew to about 200, maybe closer to 300 at one point. The crowd grew throughout the day, and as we went on the air at around 3 o'clock, things started to go sideways. There were agitators who were starting to vandalize property and then branched off and started looting businesses up and down Van Nuys Boulevard. A large gang of looters formed, and they started going business to business. We saw a pharmacy being looted. We saw dozens of looters jumping out of a Boost mobile phone store, and then we saw another medical marijuana shop being looted as well. One of the people inside that shop actually chased out the looters with a fire extinguisher, and we've seen those looters basically scatter across the neighborhood here in this part of Van Nuys. LAPD doing their level best to try and keep up and take any looters that they can into custody. And just, you saw on our air a few minutes ago, they actually caught up with the original group that looted that pharmacy and chased them in a black Charger through the streets of Van Nuys, and eventually lost him. They just decided to give it up, just decided it wasn't worth it. The way he was driving, Mark, I'm not sure if you saw it, but he was doing ridiculous speeds through the streets of Van Nuys.
We are about, an hour away from curfew in the city of Los Angeles. So within an hour, there will be more tools available for the police to try to restore order and keep the looters from doing what they're doing, keep the vandals from doing what they are doing. The protesters who are there to protest police violence against African Americans are going to have to make a decision at 6 o'clock whether they continue to protest and demonstrate or whether they observe the curfew and prepare for tomorrow to begin anew.
Absolutely. Well, we are continuing our live team coverage. Let's go to Rob Hayes. Rob, you're live with more on the situation in your position right there.
Yeah, that's right. We're in Hollywood at Sunset and Vine. You can see a good-sized protest here right in front of the Chase Bank. It's a Black Lives Matter organization has put this together. This has been a totally peaceful gathering right now. You can see them clapping and chanting. And what you'll notice they'll do, like a lot of times when they get the light, the walk signal, they'll come out into the street, they'll kneel down, and it looks like they're blocking traffic, but as soon as the light changes, they move back to the crowd. So they're letting traffic go. They're being very, I would say, courteous to all the people driving by. And you'll hear the horns honking here. It's a lot of support for the group that's out here. And one interesting thing we should point out, Jamie, if you just scan right to left here, you won't see any LAPD officers in sight. You will see, however, some National Guardsmen, like right across the street here. They're just standing. They're not interacting with any of the protesters. They're just standing by. And it's been a very peaceful, very, successful protest so far. So things are going very smoothly here in Hollywood.
We're going to keep an eye on your position, and we have this to show you as well right now. LAPD Commander Corey Polka taking a knee along with protesters outside the Laugh Factory on Sunset Boulevard. It is extraordinary.
Okay, listen up. Hold it! Okay, shut up. Listen up, please. If I take a kneel with you guys, will you give me your verbal acknowledgement that this is a peaceful matter? I will be a model. Take a knee. Take a knee. Everybody get down. Everybody down. Yeah. Everybody take a knee. Everyone go. Let's go. Take a knee. Take a knee. Even if you got a camera. Stand together. Okay. We stand together. And kneel together. Okay. Thank you. So within the next 30 to 40 minutes, if you peacefully go about returning back to where you came from with the same honor you came here, I will give you my commitment and honor that you will not see police officers in front of you. Fair enough?
Commander Corey Polka. If the name sounds familiar to you, it is not only for that extraordinary act he just demonstrated in front of protesters, it is that he is a survivor of COVID-19. He has been featured here on Eyewitness News, donating plasma so that others might also survive the coronavirus.
Absolutely. And we heard earlier today in a press conference with LAPD Chief Michael Moore saying these are complex issues and challenges. And he did say he and his department, they are committed to reform. So they are certainly all working together. Protests are also planned in Anaheim tonight. Orange County reporter Tony Cabrera is live in Anaheim with a look at what is happening right now. Tony?
Mark, Colleen, I'm right outside City Hall right now where a protest just started. You can see probably about 100 people out here. They've got their signs out. This is Anaheim Boulevard. And police, they do have a presence here, including the Sheriff's Department. You see a van just pulled up with more deputies getting out just across the street there on the corner, and a few other deputies further down the street there. That's the Center Street Promenade, where businesses earlier today, they boarded it up. So if you walk down that street, you'll just see that they're all boarded up. They were out there preparing for what could come, but so far we've seen nothing but peaceful protests here. And not too far from where we're standing, about 1.5 miles away, there was another protest earlier today that was put on by educational leaders here in Anaheim. They said they saw the flyer for the protest that we're standing at right now, and they said, you know what, we're going to take a different tone. This is going to be a peaceful protest for our students, for our youth to come out, to have a different tone, to set a different tone, because he said he saw the flyer for the current protest that we're out had a profanity towards police, and so he's saying we're also going to follow the curfew set in Anaheim. We're going to encourage our youth to go home at 6 o'clock when it goes into effect. Now back out here live here at City Hall outside, we see the protesters here, and if we pan over to City Hall, the entrance there, we can see PD out there ready for what is to come. They're expecting a peaceful protest. They're encouraging the peaceful protest, saying, yes, that is okay, but the moment it does possibly turn violent, they say, that's when they have to declare an unlawful assembly. So they're hoping that doesn't happen, but they say they are ready for any of that to happen out here. For now, we are live in Anaheim. Tony Cabrera, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, Tony, thank you. We're going to go back to Hollywood now, and our entertainment reporter Carl Schmid is out there, and he is here to tell us what we're looking at here. Carl, where are you?
Hey, Mark and Colleen, I'm on Sunset right now. We're heading east, back towards Vine. I've been with this protest since it really began a couple of hours ago, and I have to tell you, it's been extremely peaceful. As you heard earlier, they are taking their knee when they get to a red light. When the light turns green, they're getting back up and moving. There's very little police presence right here on Sunset at the moment. And certainly if I go up there, you'll see quite a generous sized crowd. But so far, you know, apart from the odd bit of profanity, it's been extremely peaceful. I see just ahead, if I flip the camera and try and get focus for you, I'm not sure how well I can do as I'm moving. Not so great, but we do see the National Guard has pulled up just in front, so they're sort of leading the way. But right now, as this rally moves back towards Sunset and Vine to meet up with the other group, everything's very peaceful, very ordinary.
Yeah, Carl, you know that in other crowds and in other locations, obviously, we've seen people trying to agitate, trying to either pick fights with people, trying to cause trouble, trying to branch off and break windows. Have you seen any of that in the crowd of people that you're with?
Do you know what? I haven't. There was a minor scuffle earlier. We've got a car here stuck in the... I'm sorry about the focus there, guys, as we move through, but no, as I said, there was a slight scuffle earlier back up at Hollywood and Highland. There was a gentleman trying to get through the police barricade to his home. The police descended on him pretty quickly, but interestingly enough, the crowd and the protest leaders really helped disperse that little altercation, and they moved on and carried on. So they went back down Hollywood Boulevard to La Brea, down La Brea, and as I said, we are now heading east on Sunset towards Sunset and Vine, where I believe Rob Hayes is.
Right, I do think Rob Hayes is there, and he's been talking about the same thing that Carl's been talking. Carl, your video froze up for a second, but it is remarkable to see everyone. This has been a very peaceful, a very motivating rally where people are being mindful of the others in the community, i.e. businesses or anybody who's trying to navigate their way around within their cars. But again, very interesting to see, because it's not the same everywhere else, because we've been following breaking news in Van Nuys where looters, they broke off from a peaceful protest. They have been breaking into stores It is a very fluid situation. We have been continuing to monitor it. Air 7 HD was over the scene just a short time ago where a Boost mobile phone business and a medical marijuana store, they were both broken into along Van Nuys Boulevard, and a large group of peaceful protesters gathered nearby in front of the Van Nuys Civic Center. And at one point, police on the scene, they were calling it an unlawful assembly, but then a short time later, officers met with the protesters, and they've all been allowed to continue a peaceful protest.
And we are seeing protests popping up on freeways too. This was the scene on the 405 freeway a short time ago. This demonstration was scheduled to take place at the Federal Building in Westwood. Somehow demonstrators ended up walking onto the 405 on-ramp and onto the freeway. Several of them spread across lanes of the freeway. They carried a banner. Traffic disrupted until the CHP showed up. Everybody did leave the freeway ultimately peacefully.
All right, well, now we're going to go to the skies and Air 7 HD live over Hollywood, again over this peaceful protest. Let's go to Chris Christie with the details. Chris?
Colleen, we're taking a look at several hundred protesters. I would say this group much larger, actually, than the one that we've been following in Van Nuys. And once again, as you mentioned, extremely peaceful. This one started near the 101 over on Hollywood Boulevard. Now we're traveling eastbound on Sunset Boulevard. And you can see the volume of people out here, and they really it's really grown over the course of the afternoon. It's right near Highland is what we're looking at. You can see a lot of signs, a lot of peaceful marching, protesters of all ages, all races, in solidarity here as they make their way through Hollywood. We're going to continue to keep an eye on them. Law enforcement is monitoring their movements, but they've been so peaceful they are not confronting them or forming any kind of a skirmish line whatsoever. They're letting them move at their own pace along Sunset Boulevard. Reporting live from Air 7 HD, I'm Chris Christie, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Yeah, Chris. Well, we've just been talking with Rob Hayes and Carl Schmidt about the way that this protest has been going. We see that they're obviously having to sort of navigate with the cars, and we see a very large group of LAPD cruisers right there. But it does, for the most part, seem we've been following these protests for the last several days, and you have certainly seen many other protests not looking quite so peaceful.
Each group kind of takes on their own profile, you know, and this is certainly on the peaceful side for sure. It's actually a welcome sight to cross over the hill compared to the chaos that we just came from that was so distressing to watch over in Van Nuys and so heartbreaking to see all of the looting and agitators really upsetting what was otherwise a peaceful protest. 99% peaceful protesters. It just took a couple of bad apples to really throw things into chaos up in the valley. In the meantime, you can see this group is interacting with traffic. LAPD does not want to see that, but right now they are being left to their own devices because of how peaceful they've been and how busy LAPD is in other parts. It just gives you an idea of just how busy LAPD is on a normal day. This group would be escorted with dozens of officers. Instead, there are literally only about a handful of LAPD units escorting this crowd through the intersections.
And that intersection where you are right now, what is that cross street?
That is Sunset at Highland. They are moving right through the intersection of Highland. Now you do see some cars that are surrounded by protesters. During the course of these protests, we've seen a lot of drivers very supportive of the cause and very tolerant of the traffic delays. But it just takes somebody to lose their patience, and you don't want to see that. That's what we really are worried about when we see cars interacting with so many pedestrians. You just want to see those cars stay still, stay calm, let the protesters pass, and then move through the intersection. Everybody here appears to be very tolerant and very patient with what's going on here.
Well, this is indicative of not only the purpose of this, which is to protest and demonstrate against the deaths of African Americans in particular at the hands of police officers, but it's also indicative of the fact that without the bad actors who seem to infiltrate these demonstrations, they go off peacefully and well. Because you've got, how many people would you say are down there? A couple thousand at this point? I mean, I can't estimate crowds, but
I think I said a few hundred. I think you're probably much closer, probably between 1,000 and 2,000, probably in the 1,500 range. I mean, at one point a minute ago, as they were condensed, I mean, it really looked like almost the entire block was packed packed with people. Unfortunately, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and after the empty streets that we've seen over the last 3 months, it's a little jarring to see 1,500 people packed like sardines in any place, any given place. So there is that to worry about. But in the meantime, a lot of them are wearing masks and continuing their peaceful march up Sunset.
All right, Chris Christie, thank you very much for that live report. We're going to go to Veronica Miracle. Veronica Miracle, you were at the scene where we saw that very poignant exchange between the LAPD and the protesters, and all working together, trying to say, we're here, we hear you, we are together, but let's do it peacefully.
Yeah, that's right, Colleen. It was really beautiful. He actually said, okay, I'm going to make a deal with you guys. If I take a knee, will you guys promise me that once curfew hits, you will go home? And everyone said yes. And all right. Hi there. Yeah, okay. Sorry for the language. So you definitely have some instigators here, but for the most part, everybody is so peaceful. And take a look, the crowd has really, thinned out because the curfew is going to be coming up at 6. We've seen people go home. We see people very satisfied and happy that they feel like they got their message across. They were able to, have one-on-one time with the LAPD. And Sunset here is completely shut down. So at least from, I believe, Hayworth Avenue, beyond Crescent Heights Boulevard a little bit there. So this whole area doesn't have any cars. All of the businesses are boarded up. Right there, you're looking at the iconic Laugh Factory and that sign, Rest in Peace, George Floyd, people holding flowers. It's very different than what we have seen, when we've seen these protests kind of devolve very quickly. I don't see that happening here at this moment. It's very peaceful in the Hollywood area. We'll send it back to you guys.
Okay, thank you very much, Veronica. We've got about 43 minutes left to go until I'm doing the math in my head.
Very
I'm
good.
terrible at math. 43 minutes to go until curfew is in effect in the city of Los Angeles. Philip Palmer is in Van Nuys, where there have been problems. There has been looting. Let's check in with Philip.
Well, right now, these people are peacefully sitting in the intersection of Van Nuys and Victory. They're not the problem. This man has been confronting officers and also protesters. He's not part of the protest, but it shows the difficulty police face because he walks right up in their face, challenging them, then comes back over. Many of the protesters have wanted him to go away. You see that people have decided they want to stay here. My assumption is before long there will be arrests, maybe peaceful arrests just as a show of support for the protest, but they're not, well, let's just see what's happening. You see a little bit of confrontation, but again, they're not supposed to be in the intersection. It's starting to back up traffic. You can look back down this way. You see the police line to my left, so they're here. And down the street now, you've got a lot of people here on Van Nuys Boulevard that are being affected by some of the protesters. Many of the protesters have left. Most of the protesters that were organizing have gone. But now you've got these folks who are here in the middle, maybe 24 people, tops. So we'll see how this develops. But right now, they're just peacefully sitting in the street, their form of protest, and it doesn't look like they're ready to go away right now. Back to you guys.
All right, Philip. Well, yeah, it looks like things could easily escalate. We have to hope. Again, we heard this yesterday, Mark, that the Santa Monica Police Chief says hope is not a strategy, but we have to hope that it doesn't escalate. We know that you always have some people who just want to instigate some trouble, and you see majority of them are very peaceful out here. And I do feel for the motorists who are trying to get home from their jobs for the most part, and they're being blocked, and it's sort of unfortunate.
Well, it is, but you got to remember what this is about and why these protests are springing up across the country and literally around the world. You've seen protests in Berlin, you've seen them in New Zealand, places like that, and it's all over the death not only of George Floyd, but the situations that have happened in so many American cities over the years, and in particular this last month. Ahmaud Arbery shooting that was revealed last month, but actually happened back in February. And police and investigators basically sat on the video until it was released to the public, and that's when finally an investigation and an arrest took place of the two men who are accused now of his murder. Breonna Taylor in Louisville, who was gunned down in her own home by police, and then Christian Cooper, who wasn't killed but basically had police called on him, and a woman said erroneously that he was threatening her life, and that could have gotten him killed if there wasn't some proof or evidence that he wasn't doing any of those things. And so it's demonstrations against unequal treatment of people of color, in particular, by police around the country, and so many police officers have echoed what the demonstrators are saying.
Yes, absolutely. We are going to switch gears here. We're going to go to Mayor Eric Garcetti now.
In Minneapolis. We all saw a man's life snuffed out. The promise of his life and the purpose of America that day was met with something fundamentally un-American, inhumane, and that cries out for justice. This morning, George Floyd's brother came before us at the site to speak to America. Passionate, pained, powerful, prayerful. He spoke to us about what happened to his brother. Terrence Floyd said that no one's grief could match his, and how blowing things up and acting out won't solve anything. We won't move the needle in the direction of justice, and certainly won't bring his brother back. And his message echoes for all of us, and to anyone who might hijack this moment and this movement to their own destructive ends. As he put it, let's do this another way. Let's stop thinking that our voices don't matter, and vote, educate yourself. That's how we're going to hit him, he added. And finally said, and there's a lot of us. I spoke yesterday about the common ground that we found in the midst of our pain. The common ground that African Americans in this country share because of the devastating legacy of slavery and racism, but that every American must own and feel, and I believe we did and do. The good police officers, together with the good people, those who spoke out in a way I had never seen in the history of this country unequivocally, to call it murder, to say that it was wrong, and demand not just justice for George Floyd and his family, but for America in the days moving forward. The Floyd family knows the truth, that the cause of fairness, the drive for equality, the fight to end structural racism, the real reason so many are demonstrating right now on our streets, none of it is advanced by the violent acts of the few. Like you, I've been out there in the streets and I've seen with my eyes, whether it's on TV or on our blocks, that those of us who cry for justice have gone out and overwhelmingly and peacefully, if painfully, express the change that has to continue to come, just as we have in years before and decades before. And this city's evolution has written many of those pages of forward momentum, of a day when the police chief was more powerful than the mayor and couldn't be fired, and spoke about how black people had different veins and that's the reason why they were dying in chokeholds. That was where we were 30 years ago. But now, as we look at the progress we still need to make and the progress that we have made, it is with that spirit that George Floyd's brother gave us that we must move forward, with that mission not just in our hearts, but also in our actions. And I want to say clearly, we are going to continue to do everything we can to restore peace and to keep this city safe. We're throwing everything we have at maintaining the peace, and we're going to throw everything we have on promoting justice, and nobody out there need pick between those two. A curfew will again be in place tonight in our city and our county It starts, I know it's a little confusing for some, at different times in different parts of the county, but here in the city of Los Angeles, in conjunction with the county-wide one, it begins at 6 p.m. You may have received a different alert from your phone, and that might have been sent from a different city when you're in the city of LA. But our curfew requires that people within the city of Los Angeles stay indoors from 6 p.m. until 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. And there's a curfew in effect across Los Angeles County. This is not a step that anybody takes lightly, but it is done for all of our safety. It's done to protect protesters, it's done to protect families, it's done to protect businesses and workers, and you know what? Most of us fit into many of those categories. So please stay indoors, and please stay safe, and obey the law. You need to go home. For days, we have witnessed demonstrations in over 140 American cities, including ours. And protests are part of a proud tradition of change in this country. We've seen this in Los Angeles in years past to promote the rights of immigrants, of women, of African Americans, to stand up for science and our environment, to do the things that do move our country forward. And if we didn't have those voices or lived in an unfree country, we could not have seen the progress we have made. And I will always put in this work. I told you during the COVID-19 crisis that I and your city government would never stop working for you. And we're not today either. Not just to work for you, but to work to end racism, to address poverty, to make sure that inequality in our city is not a model in this country, but that we erase those things that can divide us and find the ways forward. You've been there alongside, supporting things we've done, from raising the minimum wage to making community college free, to making sure that we have independent investigations of police shootings, to train our officers and folks who have served time together, to spend time together mentoring our young people in this city. And there is no question we are not at the peak yet, but we are not at the base of the mountain either. And we have to continue to find the peace in our city that will allow us to take the next step up the mountaintop. Our city has to be clear, though, because we too have been too hard hit in decades past of when violence and looting and the destruction of ourselves happens, it sets us back for years. After the peaceful protests end, when looting and vandalism begins, we have seen this too often, here across the country, in our neighboring cities here in the Southland, and our city and our police department will continue to do the work with our partners to make sure we have a city at peace. Our police department will defend this city from the crimes being committed by those who seek to exploit this moment. Arrests are being made every single day as we speak for anybody who breaks the law, and anybody thinking that it's getting easier out there or that they can get away with it, you're wrong. And I would say to you, don't be dumb. Don't make a mistake that lasts much more than today, but that can stay with you for months and years in your life. Don't do it. We will not stand for violence, for looting, for arson, not today, not ever, no exceptions. Not only because it's wrong, not only because our businesses are barely starting to stand up and those workers that work there need to get a paycheck, but we also know the danger to human lives, and thank God that so far we've not seen in this city the loss of life, but we've come close already. And that can happen to innocent people on the streets, it can happen to our peace officers, and we have to protect life. If, as we've shown in our fight against COVID-19, every life is sacred, let's prove that right now. And we are here as a city to preserve life. Small businesses were hurting long before any looting and vandalism visited them. Employees at these businesses were counting on conditions improving. These businesses are the bedrock of our neighborhoods, our main streets, of building community wealth that doesn't just go into corporate hands, but into local hands, in communities of color, in low-income communities, with immigrant-run businesses, and those businesses that have been in families for a generation or more. They were reeling, they are reeling from the effects of the COVID-19 crisis. Many of the more than 100 of the 120 businesses impacted by the destruction of the last few nights had just brought back their employees and opened their doors to customers for the first time in months. They were beginning to drum up the sales they needed to see a future, to survive. And now they have to contend with property damage, lost inventory. But I want to say that we are here to help, even in these tough moments. The Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety has been conducting safety assessments of buildings to anyone who requests one at no cost. Some damaged buildings may need only to repair glass, and they get a yellow ticket, and that means as soon as it's repaired, you're good to go. And there will be no permits required for those repairs. Others, a much smaller number, have fire damage, and they need a permit when making more extensive repairs. And the Department of Building and Safety will make sure that any plans that are submitted to repair damaged buildings are assigned to a plan checker on that same day and given priority processing. If you're one of those businesses and you don't know where to go, please go to buildla.lacity.org, and we are here to get you back on your feet. Additionally, we will be waiving the certified construction and demolition hauler requirement, so businesses don't have to pay to have debris removed. Our sanitation department will be providing roll-off and dumpster services to help clear out debris quickly. Many of you saw and thanked those city workers that were out there the next morning downtown and in the Fairfax area to provide a seamless and no-cost demolition process so small businesses can rebuild faster. And finally, in the coming days, I'll be proposing to the City Council additional financial assistance directly to businesses so that you can bring your employees back, get your stock back, and get back to business. We need to bring our economy back for our businesses, for our workers, for our neighborhoods, for us all. In addition to helping businesses recover, we will support every resident in this city. While many Angelenos wore masks this weekend, I encourage everybody going out to a protest, wear a mask, keep your social distance, and please get a free COVID-19 test. These are available for everybody who's been out there. coronavirus.lacity.org/testing is our site. And the city and county have now provided more than 500,000 free tests with or without symptoms. But if you've been out there, you may be at higher risk, so please sign up. And our largest testing center at Dodger Stadium will be open again tomorrow with thousands of tests, as well as the walk-up location at the Kedron Community Health Center in South Los Angeles. Other sites will remain closed. This is because our testing operation is led and run by volunteers. Those volunteers have not yet signed up to come back, given what's happening in the city. But thanks to the fire department and volunteers from our city staff, we will continue making sure that most of the capacity of those centers will be met at Dodger Stadium and in South LA. We know there are more protests today, and my hope is that they will continue to be peaceful and powerful from beginning to end. And I know the worst things sometimes get on the news, but I saw beautiful images too, of engagement and of restraint, of the ability to exercise our pain and our anger, of police officers who took a knee with protesters, of folks who gave hugs to our National Guard and others. We need to find each other even amidst our pain, and I believe, again, that common ground is something that we hold together. That everybody in uniform and with a badge knows that what happened in Minneapolis is wrong and is committed to not only pushing for justice there, but being part of a coalition of justice here. But for those who are acting criminally, destroying property and stealing, we see you and the police will arrest you. Those who are peacefully protesting, we see you and thank you. The city is stronger because of you. With that, let me turn it over to our Police Chief, Michael Moore, to give an update on what has happened here today, and then we'll hear from Chief Terrazas, and after that, we'll take some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as to a status check today, where we're at, as for the safety of Los Angeles, Last night, we saw the full impact of the curfew with our ability to police areas of downtown and particularly, and also the west side, but also the valley, where we saw roving groups of individuals that were not compliant with the curfew, and we believe were out to loot and prey upon businesses in our community. And our officers' actions were able to to identify those individuals and make a number of arrests. Last night, just under 700 arrests. And within those 700 arrests were 70 individuals who were either burglarizing or looting, victimizing businesses further. So what that tells me is that two things. We didn't have protests last night. We had criminal acts. We didn't have people mourning the death of this man, George Floyd. We had people capitalizing. His death